Welcome back. South Africa lost over 36 billion rand in 2019 due to gender-based violence. This is according to research findings. Joining us now is one of the leading researchers, Professor Corne Davis from the University of Johannesburg. Prof, thank you so much for making time. Let's start with why companies, and so many of them, don't have an actual policy on gender-based violence in the workplace. Is it lack of political will? They don't think it's urgent? What did you find?
No, you see, we got to look at the bigger picture here. I've been in the field of strategic communication for many years, so we work with the business communication environment in our learning modules, and to date, gender-based violence has not been written into any corporate social responsibility indices or governance, or it's not been placed within the literature of business. Where it's featured has been in the global bodies, mainly from the health communication perspectives. They have been publishing the findings on gender-based violence. So it's not that there hasn't been the will, there hasn't been the understanding of how it fits within a business framework. And those are the conversations we've been having with leaders in the private sector. And we also had a survey among employees in various sectors to see where would they position it. I don't think it's a lack of will at all.
Yeah. So how can the companies fit this in the business, in not just their corporate social responsibility, but as you say, corporate government specifications, even occupational health and safety regulations? Where should companies start?
I think the first point would be the employee well-being side. You know, there's been a reluctance to acknowledge for many years that gender-based violence is present in all sectors of society. Typically, people have chosen to believe that it's in low socioeconomic portions of the society where it occurs. But we published a report with Tears Foundation in 2017 showing how many of the emergency calls to the help at your fingertips line came from very affluent suburbs across our country. So we've got records to show, and we will publish updated reports in the near coming up soon about showing that the calls to get help in distress for gender-based violence comes from everywhere. So it has to start with an awareness in the workplace, the acknowledgement of the prevalence of the problem in South Africa among staff. Remember, we spoke to the CEOs, but we also heard from employees that they want to receive education and information. They want support. Because if you're a South African, you either are a victim or perpetrator, or you're acquainted with a victim or perpetrator, or you're familiar, friends with a victim or a perpetrator. There are very few people in South Africa who haven't got some awareness of gender-based violence. And in fact, our survey showed the extent to which the sample population were aware of all the different kinds of gender-based violence. So it's not something unknown. It's something that people are very aware of and that they want support for. So I think it should start with employee well-being and awareness raising.
Yeah. From what I picked up from the research, there are some companies that have some form of strategy around gender-based violence, but not a clearly defined policy. What are some of the consequences of not having that policy that is clearly defined? Because when you address gender-based violence and you want it strategically and intentionally addressed, that policy will come in very handy.
Let's be honest. I know of one country who have really successfully developed a program where they have gender-based violence prevention and intervention written into the Occupational Health and Safety Act of that country, and that is Canada. So there's a lot to learn, and it was a process. What it means is that policy needs to develop over time. You first need to position the topic within an organizational framework, starting with awareness raising and sharing of knowledge and information. That is the first part, which is not a difficult step because there is information available, it's accessible, and there are a lot of bodies prepared to assist private sector organizations to make the information available and accessible. That's the first part. Then there needs to be the following step, because remember, the policy that you have at present is typically the sexual harassment policies. That's the form of gender-based violence that has been featuring within organizational frameworks because it's been an issue. Remember the hashtag not in my name and all of those campaigns that followed the Harvey Weinstein story and so on. So the sexual harassment is already written into company policy. It is the support for employees and the prevention and intervention in gender-based violence that needs to come into policy. And as it was suggested by some companies, it should be part of strategy, organizational strategy, given the impact it has on our society, firstly, and secondly, also be written into governance, that it also becomes maybe part of our Occupational Health and Safety Act. It gets to the legal level sometime in South Africa, because it's never going to work if we don't all collaborate, all stakeholders. So it's not as if anybody's trying to put the private sector on the spot and say, why are there not policies? It's logical why there are not policies, because the topic has been so stigmatized that employees have not raised it either. So it's a process to follow. And we as a country need to collaborate to get to that point, I believe. Yeah.
You've mentioned that you've had conversations with a number of CEOs. Just give us a sense of the kind of industries that you tapped into. So are we talking media? Are we talking retail? And how many...
You'll see in our report, we covered most. We covered most industries. Obviously, most companies more from the financial sector because there were more. There's just more of them. But we covered a broad spectrum. You'll see, we've grouped them in the report. We've covered most. And the number of employees in total of the companies that we engaged with was 789,000 employees represented by the leaders we spoke to. So it was a pretty good sample. A total of 73 conversations were held.
All right. I'm hoping that from those conversations and the research you've done, that's going to get the companies to start really working on those clearly defined policies. Thank you for
I believe the will is there.
The will is there.
I believe the will is there. The attitudes were very positive and very receptive. I believe that it can happen.
Yeah, and let's hope it happens soon. Professor Corne Davis is with the University of Johannesburg. I really appreciate your time.